Imagine stepping out of your front door and being physically unable to stop dancing. Not for a minute, not for an hour, but for days. You don't want to do it. Your feet are bleeding. You are begging for someone to help you. But your body refuses to stop until you literally drop dead from exhaustion. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. In the summer of 1518, this happened to over 400 people in one of history's most terrifying medical mysteries, the Dancing Plague. July 1518 in the city of Strasbourg, part of the Holy Roman Empire in modern-day France. It was a miserable time. The city was buckling under the weight of extreme poverty, successive famines, and rampant diseases like syphilis and smallpox. The people were starving, stressed, and deeply superstitious. On July 14th, a woman named Frau Trophea stepped out of her half-timbered house. There was no music playing, there was no celebration, but she began to twist, twirl, and convulse in the street. Her husband begged her to stop, but she was entirely unresponsive, locked in a trance. She danced for hours until she collapsed from sheer exhaustion. But after a brief, twitching sleep, she woke up and started dancing again. Frau Trophea kept this up for nearly a week. And the most terrifying part? It was contagious. Within 7 days, over 30 people had joined her in the streets, utterly unable to stop their bodies from moving. By August, the mob of dancers had swelled to roughly 400 people. With hundreds of citizens convulsing in the streets, the city council and local physicians panicked. They ruled out astrological causes and settled on a medical diagnosis of the era: hot blood. According to 16th century medicine, the victim's blood had essentially overheated, and the prescribed cure? They needed to dance it out. Instead of restraining the victims or giving them rest, the government leaned in. They cleared the local grain market, opened up guild halls, and literally built a massive wooden stage for the victims. But they didn't stop there. The city council actually hired professional pipers, drummers, and even strongmen to hold up the exhausted dancers so they could keep moving. They believed that if they forced them to dance continuously, the fever would burn itself out. It was, without a doubt, the worst medical advice in history. The stage didn't cure them. It acted as a psychological amplifier, turning a bizarre event into a mass casualty disaster. This was not a party. Onlookers noted that the dancers were weeping. They were screaming in pain, crying out for mercy, but their limbs simply would not obey them. Their shoes were soaked in blood. The human body is not built to sustain that kind of aerobic output. Soon, the tragedy reached its brutal climax. Dancers began collapsing on the stage, dying of strokes, massive heart attacks, and severe dehydration. While exact historical death tolls are debated, some contemporary accounts claim that at its peak, the plague was taking up to 15 lives a day. By early September, the city council realized their horrific mistake. They banned public dancing and music, dismantled the stage, and shipped the surviving victims to a mountain shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus to pray for divine forgiveness. Slowly, the frenzied dancing finally stopped. So how does an entire city catch a dancing plague? For centuries, it remained a mystery. Today, modern science offers two primary theories. The first is ergotism. Ergot is a toxic fungus that grows on damp rye, the main grain used for bread in Strasbourg. Ergot is chemically related to LSD, and eating it can cause severe spasms and terrifying hallucinations. But there's a catch. Ergot poisoning restricts blood flow to the limbs. It's highly unlikely a victim could physically dance for weeks while poisoned by it. That leaves us with the most widely accepted theory, championed by medical historian John Waller: mass psychogenic illness, or stress-induced mass hysteria. Remember how miserable Strasbourg was? The citizens were pushed to the absolute brink by starvation and disease. Furthermore, the locals held a deep, superstitious fear of Saint Vitus, a Catholic saint whom they believed had the power to curse sinners with uncontrollable dancing. Under crushing psychological trauma, the human mind can literally break. The fear of the curse, combined with the sheer misery of their daily lives, triggered a collective psychological snap. Their minds and bodies colluded to create the exact nightmare they were most afraid of. The dancing plague of 1518 wasn't an act of joy, and it wasn't a demonic possession. It was a desperate, tragic physical manifestation of a city's collective trauma. proving that sometimes the most terrifying mysteries don't come from the supernatural, but from the depths of the human mind. That's all for today. If you liked the video, then please consider subscribing to the channel for future interesting contents.